Hello, and welcome to Shades of Pleasure, a podcast celebrating pleasure, sexuality, and the vibrant, inclusive spectrum of love, gender, and relationships. I'm your host, Mo, and with me are my co-hosts, Melissa, Wayne, and Kelly. And together we hope to dismantle tropes that no longer suit us and change the narrative towards more authentic living.
So what the heck is monogamy hangover?
Well,
I love this topic.
I'll give you my version of what I believe monogamy hangover is. I think it's where we try to incorporate a lot of monogamous ideas and try to bring them with us into a non-monogamous way of relating with people and being. And so I think that causes a lot of, just misalignments, and just because we want to be in this non-monogamous relationship at the same time, we want to hold on to our monogamous values, which which can be problematic.
We cling to what we know, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love the idea of monogamy hangover because it's like we're bringing the stuff that we don't really want into non-monogamy, right? Like jealousy, possessiveness. Well, actually, scratched the jealousy one, but possessiveness, ownership, feeling threatened when, our partner meets someone else, and we default to this idea that, oh, if my partner loves someone else, they're not going to be able to, there's no room to love me, right?
Yeah.
Like all of that is
Pretty.
monogamy hangover.
Yeah, the control, the wanting to still play those kind of games where you want, I want to hold out before, and I want to say anything before they say anything, and just all those kind of things that we bring in, that didn't serve us in our monogamous relationships, but now we trying to bring them into our non-monogamous relationship instead of just being very vulnerable and transparent and just speaking about things that come up for us and talking about them. We still try to hold on to these things because we don't want to be hurt and vulnerable, right?
So I think what you're saying is in monogamy, we're not as open and honest, right? We might not share as readily, or we might hide things. Like, I think a monogamous trope that I see a lot is well, I can't tell my partner that I think someone else is attractive, or not being able to share these types of things with your partner, yet your partner's kind of your best friend, right?
Yeah.
So I think the monogamy hangover is right.
Yeah. And not even so far as not sharing some of things about your past with your monogamous partner because the fear of being judged, and having some shame associated with some of the things you may have done, in your earlier years,
Not talking about former relationships. Yeah.
Because even speaking about a former relationship can feel threatening to your current relationship, at times, right? Because of the way that you may talk about them, or some of the things that you may have shared with a past partner could feel hard in your monogamous relationship because you don't feel like you could live up to certain things sometimes.
Or this idea that if you meet someone and you're having new relationship energy, this sort of default thinking, I just want to be monogamous with this person, or you kind of, and it's hard. It's hard because we're so deeply conditioned to think in those ways, that there's one soulmate out there for us, and there's one person that's going to fulfill all those needs. And then we try polyamory, but we're still kind of in that mindset, right? We try non-monogamy, but we're still kind of in this mindset. And I think, when trying to do the non-hierarchical is really trying to undo a lot of those monogamous tropes.
Definitely. Oh yeah, that's a big one. But yeah. And what also came to me when you were talking is that the idea of still wanting, and I know we've spoken about this before, but I think briefly, but it's the one about like wanting to feel special within your relationship. So and then or when someone's spending time with somebody else, it's all about the things that you're losing out on. Like, oh no, what does that mean about me now? That they don't want to be with me anymore. They don't love me as much as they loved me because they're in love with someone else. Or, how can how can I be here when it's so hard for me because I feel like I can't compete with this other person that they're seeing, and this person is so different from me, and just comparing ourselves, all those type of things that come up for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost sounds I mean, like it's inevitable. It is part of, I mean, it's part of the non-monogamous journey. It's part of, yeah, of non-monogamous relationships. Is there something, I'm curious about the term, and is there something kind of specific about it, like the creation of this term that, like, I don't know, at a certain point in the relationship, or it's triggered by something, or are we just generally talking about kind of like what you're talking about now, like it's just a part of the non-monogamous journey? Does that make sense? My question make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. I think it is definitely part of the non-monogamous journey
Okay,
because
it's just kind of a term for what's naturally going to be a part of most people's non-monogamous journeys.
oh yeah, yeah, because you know what you know, right?
Mhm.
If you've been non-monogamous, I mean, if you've been monogamous the majority of life, and then now you're transitioning to non-monogamy, you're going to still bring all. You're not just going to let go all the things that
Well, especially if we don't have anything to replace it with. If we haven't learned any, yeah, like you said, we haven't learned anything new.
exactly. Yes. And most of us don't have support systems in place, places to get information or learn new things, to replace old things, like we just kind of jump out there because things become pop culture, popular, and we just like, oh, you know what, we're gonna do this and we're gonna try it without actually doing the work, to learn about it and see what it may take for you for yourself to kind of like shift your mindset around how to relate with people in this way.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the bigger part of, like, the bigger kind of, the bigger highlight that stands out to me is not whether or not, like, these monogamous parts come into the non-monogamy. It's like whether or not, they're reflected on, like, do we talk, like, are we actually acknowledging these parts in time? Because you can choose to have monogamous parts in your non-monogamy.
Of course.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that, Melissa. That's so true. I mean, you do get to decide, right? I think I think a lot of times, and for the four of us, the main thing about non-monogamy is that it gets us thinking about those monogamous tropes. Like ideally, we are always thinking about them and choosing what we're gonna choose, like, and we're not blindly going into something or um, blindly doing something. We're mindful about the choices that we make in our relationships.
Yeah.
At least we try, right, as much as we can.
Well, your hair is looking extra great today. Just FYI.
But really, wearing my curls, trying to lean in.
I
Yes,
like it.
love it. Yeah, I noticed something I've been talking about with my clients as of recently is just the idea of because I think that it's almost cliche for everybody to speak about, excuse me, about, oh, just have conversations, or just be vulnerable, or what's the other one, just I forget what it is right now, but I think that when I think about those things, it's like, do we really understand what those things mean? I think that we just kind of go off of what we have learned throughout childhood, through being parented, and then as adults throughout circles. And so, to be vulnerable is a huge thing. And it's super scary because that means that I'm allowing somebody to have all the vulnerable, I mean, the scariest parts of me. I'm letting them know about those, what I'm afraid of and what I fear, and the things that are my insecurities, and I'm giving it to somebody and hoping that they don't weaponize them against me. And so we tend to, even in our whatever monogamous relationships, and sometimes even in non-monogamous relationships, we hold those things and don't share them, but then we get upset when someone doesn't show up for us in a way that we would want them to, or we expect them to, because these unspoken expectations that we have, right? Because again, we're afraid to let somebody know, but then we expect that they kind of mind readers and know what's going on with us, you know.
Yeah. In non-monogamy, you really get to look at all of those things and talk about them, ask about them, question them. Um, and when you're not embarking on something like non-monogamy, you're not going to ask questions. You're going to default to a lot of those rules. And I think when we use the term monogamy hangover, we're I think we're suggesting that, damn, I fell into the trap again. Right? It's kind of like that. Like, damn,
Yeah.
I did that thing again, assuming that this person's going to act a certain way, or assuming that they're going to, as opposed to like, I'm learning this new way of relating. I'm learning this new way of being vulnerable. I'm learning that that this isn't a cheating environment, because we're going to be honest about these types of things. Like, I think cheating is a monogamy hangover thing for sure. Right?
Yeah.
Keeping
Yeah, yeah.
secrets.
What you just made me think of, I had a client tell me, man, this non-monogamy thing is hard. And what I told them was, I was like, what is hard is because I said it's only as hard as we make it. I said what ends up happening is that a lot of things that when we go into non-monogamy, a lot of things that lay right up under the surface that we've never dealt with and that we haven't addressed are most likely going to rear its head when you're in this non-monogamous relationship, because all these things are now going to come up because of your own jealousy, insecurity, just not feeling safe within your relationship because you think that the fears of this person may leave you, and all the things like your abandonment issues, your codependency, your anxiety, stress, all these things are going to be exacerbated within this non-monogamous relationship in the beginning because of all the things that society tells us that we aren't good enough, or we aren't enough, just all those things come up for us.
Mm.
So this is why the person I'm with is choosing somebody else outside of me, when that's not the case at all.
So do we have some monogamy hangover remedies? Bloody Marys. It's my favorite hangover remedy.
Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
Isn't there alcohol in Bloody Mary?
Yeah, I was just being funny.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, yeah. The hair of the dog, though.
Coconut water.
Yeah, you're supposed to have alcohol in your hangover food. What is the remedy? I think community is a remedy.
Yeah.
Support system. Yes, I think that's huge. To find people around you who can relate, who have gone through things, who can support you. Yes, that is
To
huge.
call you out, who can point out what's happening, point out the patterns, behavioral patterns, thinking patterns.
Yep. And one of my favorites, I think I've mentioned this a number of times in the different discussions we've had here, is so that they can see that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones dealing with. And I think that alone brings a lot of relief and helps us to, to accept that it's coming up, and then helps us to, I think, build up some courage to to lean into that and face and try something different or whatnot. So
Yes, that's the big one. I was going to say that, like just try to some, I know this is easier said than done, but some self-awareness is kind of try to figure out when you see it coming up, some of these old patterns or some of these old things that you would do. And like because I remember you said to me one day, like try something new, try something different this time. Don't do the same thing you've done in the past. Like do something different in how you reacted in the past. Try something different this time.
I love that. Yeah. That's something I try to encourage my clients, my couples. Like, is that working for you? I mean, and it's a good question, because when was monogamy working for you? Like, didn't you come into this wanting a change, wanting a transformation, wanting to try new things, wanting to expand? But why are you going back to that small, kind of caged thinking? It is caged. It's colonial colonized, you know, capitalistic, patriarchal thinking.
Yeah.
And you get into non-monogamy because you want to change something. You don't maybe not have the words for it, you may not know exactly what it is, but you want to change the system. You want to change the system that you're in. And but sometimes it's hard because you're conditioned to think one way.
Yeah, you just made me think. I said something to somebody recently, and I told them, I said, like, I think that because somebody asked me a question about me and Melissa's relationship. They were like, so is is Melissa worried about? Are you not worried? No, are you not worried about Melissa leaving you because you fall in love with somebody else, or you're not worried about Melissa not loving you the same because you want to experience somebody, in a different way, in a more intimate or deeper way. And I was like, I said, I don't fear that. I said, and I think that it's easy for you to look at it like that because you have this limited view of seeing how relationships can be. You're looking at it through a limited lens. And if you were to step outside and broaden your perspective around what relationships can be, what love can be, you can see all the possibilities. And I think that, and I know it's easier said than done, it's just that we've only looked at it from this very limited way, and then we wonder why we struggle a lot of times in these relationships because we only they're pretty rigid, and with that rigidity, it doesn't allow for a lot of error.
Yeah, I think that is exactly it, right? Like thinking that you're going to fall in love with someone or that Melissa's going to fall in love with someone and then leave you is the epitome of monogamy because that's what has to happen in monogamy, right?
Yes.
Monogamy equals you can't be in love with someone else and be with the person that you're with. I mean, you can, but monogamy doesn't support that.
Yeah.
Monogamy supports, well, you got to be in love with the person that you're with. And that's only one person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the most monogamous kind of question that people are going to ask. Like, aren't you afraid they're going to leave? And like, isn't that why we do non-monogamy so that they won't leave?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Even in that, like when people date, right, in the monogamous world, and they're dating, and they feel like they have to have a reason why they're dating. They have to have, and I remember I told a client recently, I was like, why does it have to be an agenda? Why does it have to be an end goal? Why
Goal.
can't it just, right? Why can't it just be like, oh, this person I feel like this is a person I would love to get to know. Like, let me just go out and see
Everyone's
this.
on the escalator, Wayne.
Yes.
All on the escalator.
Yes. And you lose an opportunity to possibly, and I know that everybody says, oh, I already have enough friends. You could lose an opportunity to meet somebody who could be a great addition to your life without having all the expectations that come along with being your friend or being in a relationship with you and so many different other things.
Mhm. And we grow in relationships. So, I think that like monogamy sort of also lends itself to stagnation, right? Like you and that person are going to grow together, but eventually the growth is going to stop. And it's like your pot, like if a plant is in a pot, unless the pot gets changed to a bigger pot, what happens to the plant? It stops growing.
Yes.
So we need bigger pots. We need to grow. We need to have a bigger pot.
So I see that I see there's a shift happening in the country around many different people starting to try out different dynamics in relationships. And just like what would you say to people around the idea of just people who maybe want something different but are afraid to or don't know how to, like what would you say to like new people come along like, hey, monogamy sucks for me right now, and I would like to try something, but everything else seems so scary.
Mm-hmm.
I
Sorry,
don't know
what
if,
did I
I don't
say?
know if I don't know if I asked my question the
You
correct
said
way.
somebody who's not ready to.
No, not somebody who's not ready to, but just because there's a shift happening right now. A lot more people
Mhm.
are opening up to non-monogamy, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of people who are afraid to for many different reasons, right? So
Mhm.
what would you say to them, the people who are trying to who are kind of maybe on the fence? That's it. That's more accurate. Like, what would you say to people who are on the fence?
Hmm.
Sorry, she's distracting me. Uh, we're on the fence.
Hi, Zoe. What do you think? She's got some ideas.
Um, hmm, on the fence. I mean, obviously, my first thing is like wanting to know why they're on the fence or what they're on the fence about. But I think one thing that I can think about is maybe thinking about it beyond sex and relationships with other people. I think people maybe get really caught up in that and miss kind of the broader benefits, and value of non-monogamy. And I do think that there's something there for everyone. Actually, I think one of was it Courtney? He had a really great post, and he was talking about how he was in a non-monogamous relationship for quite some time. I mean, monogamous relationship for quite some time, wasn't feeling like, he was kind of getting his needs met, or, it was very stifling. And then those are my words. I don't know if he said that exactly, but then, so he explored non-monogamy. And I think he went back to monogamy after it, but with a lot of the tools that he had gained from non-monogamy. And I think kind of talked about how, his experience was just that he didn't have the tools, the language, the experience to really have. I know, like you said, it's cliche, but it is one common example of to have like these open, honest conversations about, and not just the honest conversations, but even for ourselves, the like that we even can think about, like our minds, our minds sometimes are even like we can't even think about the possibilities beyond what we already know. And so, I think in that way, if we think about like what's here for me, like, yeah, not just sleeping with other people or having sex or relations with other people, like how can this support me in other ways?
Hmm. Yeah, I think thinking beyond I think most people just automatically go to the sex part though, because that's that's what they think it is,
Mhm.
right? And I think reframing it like that also can help them recognize like people are already engaging in different forms of non-monogamy, right? Like these concepts that people have. My work husband,
Mom.
I don't know if you guys have heard that term before, but
Yeah.
it's like, well, what's a work husband? Oh, we just spend a lot of time together because we work together. Like that's a form of like you have different relationships in your life that fulfill different needs. And you have space for those relationships, right? Well, this non-monogamy and specifically polyamory, what I'm talking about, allows us to take a look at those relationships and recognize them and to have more mindful conversations about them that we might not have otherwise.
Well, it's about outsourcing different needs, right? And some of those feel more threatening than others.
Mom.
Mhm.
Mom.
Mhm.
Mom.
Yeah, I mean, one example, I guess small example that I can think of is how, again, this is not related to, sex or relationships with other people, but it definitely um kind of came through my non-monogamous learning experience and journeys and things like that, was like this idea of oh, wait a minute. Wait, we don't have to sleep in the same room together. And hearing how other people and other couples like live their lives and live at home based off of what they need, or what's right or good for them. Or like, oh, long distance relationships, like that, some people really enjoy them. And again, I know that's not specific to more than one person at the same time, but like we've kind of beat here with the nail on the head here is like, It's just, it's a vehicle for, you know, expanding our minds, our ideas and minds and beliefs about relationships overall in general, period. So,
Yeah, I love it.
well, that's great.
I thought about something. I was like, you know, when you earlier you were talking about Melissa, you were talking about you I think you would said something about, and it's just like just thinking about, like, I don't know if you said benefits or just all the, yeah, not just thinking about the sex
Benefits.
aspect of it, just not thinking about sex, or you know, and so what made me think about was that, you know, like something so simple as like how kids look at it, right? You know, when we asked our kids about, oh, how would they feel if we, you know, whatever, and they were like, oh, shoot, that's great. I get to ask an extra person for something. And I have another adult to get things from. And I think we got to actually experience it a little bit. As a prime example is that, like, we were out of town recently, and I guess the 9-year-old asked you for something, and I guess you didn't get it, so he went and asked the other person, and she got it for him, and he felt like empowered because he could still go ask somebody else. You know, even from that, it was like funny, but it's just an example of just like, you know, it's so many benefits to just having more support and more community than not, you know. And I think that somebody else could have been totally offended by that, right? And totally upset and felt like they were like something, like as if someone went behind them or did something they didn't want them to do. You know what I mean? Just made me think about it. But again, another way of feeling like you're being, like it's a betrayal almost, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm coming back to what I was thinking at the very beginning, is that I think we have a really, I think it's human nature to sort of cling to what we have. And if anything is coming around that feels like it could threaten it, it's just that it feels threatening. And then it brings out our worst qualities. And so it can become this really scary place to move into, a very scary space to want to explore.
I think that what we're saying, yeah, but I think that a lot of that is learned, right? A lot of the threats to our safety is learned and then perpetuated by our culture that perpetuates monogamy, right? Like, you know, we've talked about couple privilege. There's so much couple privilege in our culture. So, like, you've got to be in a couple, and non-monogamy doesn't necessarily support couples, right? So, I think I question what, you know, personally, like, is a lot of the stuff that we are like afraid of from a really young age, is that because we're like conditioned to believe in, you know, couple privilege and relationship escalator and cheating and all of those things that go along with monogamy. And if monogamy wasn't the norm, would we be that scared? Would we feel more free? We would probably live in villages where everybody, you know, took care of each other's kids, and you know, everybody kind of had different partners, and it was trust and communication and honesty was all built in. Like, if that was the way that we were raised and then the norm, would we feel all of those feelings of fear?
Yeah.
Is fear of abandonment perpetuated because we grew up in a nuclear family where we have a mom and a dad, and if one of those people leave, we're ostracized from society, right? We no longer have the nuclear family. We no longer have the mom and the dad, right? So what do we learn? We learn from a really young age that, like, it has to look a certain way.
Yeah, and even to that point, right? And if it doesn't look that way, then we are a failure. We haven't we failed in life, or failed at some point to where we didn't become the thing that we were hoping to come, or everybody else thought we should become. You know, and I definitely agree that it creates a scarcity mindset around all things, right? Because if your person leaves you, it's all bad. Like, you don't have like now you're all alone, right? Instead of, like you said, having this support system and this village, you know, like, yeah.
And I talk about this a lot too, so, you know, forgive me for being redundant, but I think because, like, I talk about the queer community a lot because they have been doing non-monogamy for a really long time and practicing it. And they didn't have rights to get married until 2015, right? So you're talking about a community that couldn't get married. So they kind of were able to be more free about it. And that's what naturally happened, right? So, and then now that there is the legal rights to marry, I feel like more of the queer community is becoming more monogamous, right? Wasn't always so. So it's definitely, you can see, like, it doesn't take a genius to see that, like, it wasn't even that long ago, um, how we've been colonized to be the to think this way, right? Like, naturally, if marriage and we don't have those rules, we default to something different.
Yeah.
As a person too who tends to like focus a lot, enjoys talking about emotions and emotional experiences and things like that. You know, one step further, like even if something does feel like a threat to us, right? Even if that was conditioned, we did learn that it was passed on to us. Like, what I encourage is like we also get to choose like how to, you know, and it's not easy. It's easier said than done, but we get to practice, um, you know, not reacting so just like automatic autopilot reacting, and we get to kind of like respond to those threats now, you know, and so I think that's even a thing that we learn, right? Not only the threat itself, but then like how to react to the threat is even a learn. So there's this understandably why monogamy hangover is a thing because
Right? Because layers.
layers, deeply rooted. Like this shit is not going to just change overnight. So
No.
yeah. And I think just remembering your why, you know, remembering what drew you to non-monogamy in the first place could be a helpful anchoring through this journey.
It used to make me, I thought something popped in my head about how some of my clients. I just thought about like, you know, like it's easier for somebody like let's say it's easier for somebody to be in relations with somebody and let's say they're engaging and maybe they're together and a text message may pop up on the phone or you see them they're texting and they won't say anything, right? They'll let it all that energy build up inside them and have all this narrative that they've created in their head. So when they walk away, they're upset and angry, you know, instead of just asking because that's something they've never been able to do or had the space to do in any other relationship. But in these non-monogamous relationships, you have all the space to address your feelings that come up for you when you're feeling uncomfortable or you're feeling uncared for or whatever the case. But in monogamous relationships, you know, if you were to do that, it could be problematic. And it's just like, and so I ask my clients, I say, so why didn't you speak up for yourself? Why did you not ask? It's like, oh, because you know, I'm not used to that, like, or you can't, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, well, in this relationship, you surely can. Take care of yourself, please. Like, ask if something makes you feel some kind of way, just ask. You know, you don't have to, it's not accusing someone of something. Say, hey, so, you know, the other day we're hanging out, or in that moment, you can say, hey, you know, like, I'm kind of feeling whatever I'm feeling right now. And it's just to take care of yourself more so than to not, because if you don't do it, it'll just build up and now you're making these unilateral decisions in your head because of the feelings that you have. And which don't allow which go back to your point, Mo, that makes the relationship stagnant because it's not going to grow because you've already decided that this is where it's at. Because you don't
Yeah.
trust this person.
Right. I think that yeah, and I think that like in monogamous relationships, when there's just two people, those patterns are, it's like easier to get those bad patterns to stick. But, you know, add a third, add a fourth, add a fifth, and now those patterns are going to create a lot of issues for you. And so, um, you know, I think in ethical and consensual non-monogamy, people are, working really hard to try to dismantle some of those old tropes. But even if you don't practice ethical and consensual non-monogamy, adding more and more people, you like have to start practicing ethical and consensual non-monogamy because otherwise your life is going to be a mess. There's just too many people. You've got to start communicating. You've got to start, taking better care of yourself and your partners. And you do learn the tools by default in some cases because you have to.
That's scary work to do. It's scary to look at those things. It's scary to look at them on your own, much less to share them with other people, like Wayne was saying before. That's what's required.
And I always tell people, I say, well, look, it's here already. Like, because I think a lot of people's like, well, it's almost like remember when they would see same-sex couples walking down the street, they're like, oh my gosh, like, why do they have to be out in public? And it's like, because if you see it, then now you're going to become that thing, right? Or it's going to influence you. And I was like, well, guess what? Massachusetts is already, in the city of Massachusetts already passed a law that they're recognizing polyamorous as a relationship, polyamory as a relationship. So it's already happening, like we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
So I got a question to switch it up a little bit and wrap up. I'm curious, like, let me see if I can ask this how I'm thinking it in my head. What's something that you've experienced in non-monogamy? It can be small, it doesn't have to be big, or it could be big if you want to. But that is like that you're like, damn, that's pretty cool. Like I get to do that or say that or see that or experience that, because of my work in non-monogamy. Like, for example, I'll start off. This is such a small thing, but
I'll start.
it was such in my head. It was really in my head the other day. Wayne, I'm about to put you on blast a little bit. The other day, Wayne was about to, go hang out. I don't know, just, nothing in particular, but just like go hang out with other people. And I was like, Wayne, I was like, Wayne, she don't want me to talk.
Doesn't.
Hey, Wayne, you're going out like that? It was like, wait, what? I was like, I should, I'm gonna go meet new people or something. It's like, why are you dressed like that? Like, go dress up. And then I thought, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. I get to tell my husband, like, hey, go be your best self. Like, go look. I know, we get comfy with each other and all that good stuff, but like, go hang out, go dress up, go be your best self. And I thought that was really cool. That was a proud moment for me.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was more recent, like when we were in Atlanta recently, and it was me, Melissa, someone that I've connected with on a deeper level, and somebody I used to connect with on a deeper level. We're all hanging out together, and we had the kids with us. I just thought it was so cool for me just to be sitting over there, kind of like off my own, and just to see them all interacting, and not just interacting, but it was great. They were having fun. They raced. They were playing games. They had fruit, and this was the three of them. It wasn't the kids. The kids didn't even race with them. So it was just really cool. It's like, wow, like this is like who gets to live in this space like this? So whose life is like this? This is amazing. Like people I care about can come together and coexist, and then not be any problems or anything. No one's feeling left out or less than, and it was really cool. It was a great experience. I'm glad I got to experience that.
Yeah, I think mine. Oh, am I interrupting?
No, go ahead.
I think mine is more. I think relationships have always been very important to me, not just romantic relationships, just romantic. I mean, relationships in general. And I think I've always kind of known this, but I think it's more solidified that I don't find people to be disposable, and so you work through the hard things to make sure that you get to keep the important people in your life, whatever that looks like. And I think that's harder to do if you haven't done a lot of work on yourself.
That's a yes. I love that one. That's yes.
I think for me, it's the ability to just be myself, to say what's on my mind, to kind of just, um,
Yeah.
not have to hide any aspect of myself, not have to lie, not have to keep secrets, not feel like I have to like hide my phone or like hide my, you know, texts and things like that. Like just being able to just be myself, the comfort that comes with that. Doesn't mean it's not always scary, but always being aware that the fear is part of that conditioning.
My one last question. This came to me just now. Do you feel like if you do you feel like you have the patience or the capacity? Because obviously people are going to be new at some point, trying to be non-monogamous. Do you feel like where you are, do you have the capacity or the patience to work with somebody who is willing and to do the work, but they're brand new?
You mean on a personal level?
And
Yeah,
as
on
a
a personal level.
client or as
Yeah. Oh,
a,
no, no, as a partner
Or connection?
or connection.
I don't think so.
I don't know about all that.
Because like if they're bringing in a lot of old, like a lot of the negativity, like I can't deal with that.
Yes, baby.
I understand that there can be feelings and things, but yeah, I don't think so. No, the answer is no for me.
Yeah, but it's kind of like when you say, "Oh, I'm too busy for this," or "I can't do that," and then all of a sudden somebody is or
True.
something in life that you're excited about. Then all of a sudden you have all this newfound
Yeah.
energy and motivation too. So in this moment, I'd say no, but
But
talk
who
to me.
knows? Look at you. You're a new dog mom, so there's that. She said like 6 months ago, she's like, I could never have a dog. I travel too much.
Bye bye.
Now look at you. Bye bye.
Hi, it's good to see you, little boo.
Good to see you, Zozo. See you next time.
She is literally waving. Ugh.
We're all leaving. All right, I guess that's it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Yes, thank you for the conversation today. Wow. Okay.
Go have a hair of the dog.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Shades of Pleasure podcast is currently unsponsored and is brought to you by Los Angeles Sex Therapy and Last Collective in partnership with Shades Therapy and Shades of Non-Monogamy. To support our endeavor so we can continue to bring this pleasurable content, please visit our Substack at shadesofpleasure.substack.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time.